Hey, Borough podcast listeners. It's your boy, D-Rock. Thanks for tuning in. This episode, we have the return of Eddie Avila of comic book fame, day one to be exact. Eddie comes back and sits down with us to go over what's new with his comic. He updates us on how well he's doing and the hustle he's going through with getting himself booked at all these comic shows, what it takes to sell a comic at the same time as producing one. It's pretty in-depth. Then we get into the old school conversation about, bouncing. Myself, Chris, Mike, and Eric all have spent time bouncing and have bounced with Eddie as well. So we start talking about the old school at Neptune's with the bouncing scene and what it was like. But before we get into the rest of that, let's give a shout out to our sponsors. We got to give a big thanks out to all the guys that sponsor us here at the Borough podcast. Actually, before I forget, we're also now on iTunes. So if you're listening through our Bandcamp website, go search us at the Borough podcast on iTunes and click that subscribe button. Why, you say? Because it's easier to listen, and you're going to make it easier for us to get more sponsors so that now when I talk, I'll have more than 3 people to talk about before we get into this episode. So you can fast forward faster, but we can get paid. Yeah. Click that button. All right. Shout out to our sponsors, AS Engineering Services. You can find them online at asengineeringservices.com. You can contact them at 631-560-0259. They're the OG sponsor of the Borough podcast. Shout out to Alex Spiro. We appreciate all the love and support, man. He is the head of AS Engineering Services. He's a solid guy. He's been a guest on the podcast before. He personally will receive your emails or phone calls, and he's the guy to talk to about any engineering services you need, whether you're having a house sold, you're looking to buy one, appraisals, things of that nature. Also, Municipal Land Survey, 631-345-2658. If you got to move that side bitch into your apartment, you need it zoned out right, you're putting up a pool, whatever, give him a call. Also, Eric Ott at RCG Mortgage. Yes, Eric Ott is also a podcast host, but he's also a mortgage guy. So if you're thinking about buying a home for your first time or refinancing, you're going to want to give Eric a call or shoot him a text. He'll make sure he gets you pre-qualified. And if you've been listening to this podcast, you know he's a good guy to talk to just in general. So hit him up, Eric Ott at RCG Mortgage, 631-774-1783, or you can shoot him a text message. He'll get back to you if he's not recording a podcast or beating somebody up in the cage, whatever. He's a pretty versatile guy, so give him a call. Those are all our sponsors. Eddie Avila coming up.
All right, and we're on.
That's the intro.
That's the intro.
Borough podcast is on, apparently. I'm here with Eric Ott,
David Della Rocca, and our guest today,
Eddie Avila.
So this is the second time we've had you on, Eddie?
Yeah. Yep.
Smooth, not bad. Eric Ott's not usually the conversation starter, but he's doing all right now. Go ahead, take the wheel.
I like to usually bide my time a little bit, but today we're being joined by I'm going to say your name the proper way. I've known Eddie for a very, very long time, and I never knew what his real name was. I was just like, oh, Eddie Avila. And then at one point, we were booking a trip to go away together, and I was like, oh, Eddie, I need your full name for the airline. And I get Eduardo Washington Avila.
Washington.
Yeah, it's a very powerful middle name there.
Whoa, okay, hold on. I need to hear the origin of that.
I'm a junior. I would have to ask my grandmother why that happened.
That's a real serious name. I don't have a name. I'm Eric William Ott. It's nowhere near as serious as Eduardo Washington Avila.
Yeah, that's
Well, I want to know why the Washington, not Eddie and Avila. Okay, but Washington is a unique one. It's a good one.
Honestly, I don't even know why.
Just a family name.
It's my Ecuadorian side too, which is like even more bizarre.
You need to make up some elaborate lie about it then.
Yeah, I should have.
You should say like, well, one of George Washington's relatives came down to Ecuador, and he set up camp in my family's town, and now I'm a descendant.
My great-grandfather made his wooden teeth.
That could be true. That could be true.
He was a powdered wig master.
That maybe this is where your art side comes from.
It could be, yeah. It could be.
Your great-great-grandfather was a powdered wig maker and wooden tooth shaper.
I would love to know if you could only go back and like look at history in a telescope or like some sort of video.
That'd be so cool.
How amazing would that be?
I was thinking about this today. I was listening to a podcast, and one of the guys on there is a history guy. This guy Daniele Bellele.
Oh, the Italian
Yeah.
professor, right?
Yeah, and he's got his own history podcast. So they were talking about like periods of time in history, and I was thinking like, how cool would it be to be able to go back in time, but only observe, right? Like you could go back at any point and observe,
Yes.
and just watch. How cool! Because they were talking about like early America, like during the Revolutionary War and stuff like that. How cool would it be to see what life was like at that point?
I that would be it. I would never come back. I would just watch. I'd be
all day long.
I'd be some creepy voyeur in the corner watching all of these like colonial people get it on. Like that would be like my MO.
Do you think you'd come back and like ask your wife to like grow out her bush?
I'd be like, listen, there are these hoop skirts that I'm really into right now. Really, really into it. You got to just put a little bit of soot on your face.
I think it would be tough to choose where to go.
Oh,
And how far
so
back.
difficult.
You could go anywhere.
I know.
So
but
difficult.
how
Oh,
do-
you're
where do
saying
you
if you had to
start?
choose only
Yeah.
one period of time?
Yeah, I would assume you
That's
probably
tough.
could only choose one.
I would love to see like what Rome was like.
Ancient Greece,
Greece, Rome,
Persia.
Persia.
yeah. You know when fucking the mongrels were running amok.
Real savages were living
Yeah.
and destroying and pillaging.
Go hang out with the Vikings and go watch them pillage like the European monasteries. They get all high on like mushrooms and get all wasted and run through like these towns with giant battle axes.
It'd be sick.
Dude, it would be insane.
Also, back in like the 1800s, like what's Western style, like Back to the Future. I would love to see what that was
Gunfights,
like.
pistols, and
Yeah.
stuff like that. Duels.
duels.
Well, and maybe just go back
Challenge you to
also.
a duel.
I would love to just go back and watch dinosaurs.
I don't know if I'd want to go that far. I mean, it would be interesting, but I like humans.
Me too, but
Just to see what it was actually
Yeah.
like. I bet it was a lot more boring than we think it was. Just from the standpoint, I bet a lot of times they were just like animals sort of milling around, and every once in a while there was like some type of T-Rex fight or something like that. But
I just want to see what they looked like.
oh, it'd be so scary.
You know what I mean? Because new theories have come out about how they think some of them might have even had like feathers and stuff
Yeah.
like that. Like that's
Like
terrifying.
birds.
Yeah, that's terrifying.
That would be pretty awesome, though. How
Yeah.
much money would you make if that was what you had to sell?
Yo, you could definitely charge like $10 million a trip, and you'd be so booked up that you wouldn't have any room for anybody else.
Nothing.
You'd be booked up for years.
That'd be a hell of a
You wouldn't be able to go.
tourist
Yourself.
attraction for sure.
Amazing. That would be so awesome.
So for our listeners, if you don't remember Eddie from the first time he's here, he's the creator of the Day One comic. He's a phenomenal artist. He actually brought some pretty cool pieces for us to check out today, and some T-shirts. So
Which was very cool. Thank you.
Yes.
last time we spoke, you were in the process. I think you were getting your comic book printed. The initial run, was that where we
No,
were?
we actually the first time it was on, we were like a couple days into Kickstarter.
Oh, this was
Yeah.
way, way, way early, just into the Kickstarter.
Way early.
Gotcha. So tell us a little bit what's happened between then and now.
So we were.
You met your goal, obviously.
Yeah, we went over our goal, which was really awesome, and so we were able to print, and then we printed it at the end of May, and just since May, I've been pretty much just, hitting the comic shows, hitting the local stores, and just trying to get it out there, and it's been pretty good considering it's independent, small base, and I would say I'm probably around 1,200 copies sold right now.
That's
Literally
fucking awesome.
Just working here in the tri-state area, pretty much. I hit a couple stores when I travel for my regular job. I hit a couple stores like in Denver and stuff, and everybody picked it up. but it's not bad, I guess. Considering that it's just kind of really isolated to this area.
How many full comics are to print already?
Just issue 1. I did print issue 2 and 3 in a very, very small production for the Kickstarter, the people who invested in Kickstarter. So once I'm done selling through issue 1, I'm gonna print issue 2.
So you sold 1,200 copies of one single comic so far?
Pretty much, yeah.
That's fucking awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty good. But I have the regular color copy, and then I have a variant cover, which is a low run, for like collectors and stuff. And then I have also 2 blank covers. There's a red blank and a white blank, which I only sell at shows, and I do original artwork on them. So I sell them with my original artwork on.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about what you've been doing to promote. I know you've been going to Comic-Con.
Yeah, that's a ton of Comic-Cons.
So there's one like every different region now, right?
Pretty much, yeah. Like this year, I think we have about 12 shows that I booked. And the timing also, this is another thing too that was a little bit of a hurdle last year, was when we came out in May, a lot of the shows were already closed. So I couldn't get into a bunch of shows. So I took advantage of the ones that I could get into. But this year, I got into a lot more shows that I could not get into last year. So I think, I'm hoping that I could double the
sales,
volume. Yeah, that I could get to issue 2.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
What do you need to get to for issue 2? Like, do you have a goal in mind before you
I just want to make what it would cost to print it. But I have a couple of different ideas that I've been running through my head, because I kind of want to, it's a lot of work. The behind the scenes is a lot of work. So what I'm thinking I might do is I might also just kind of send it out to some publishers. I've been getting good feedback from a lot of stores and a lot of people who I talk to at these shows. And also my artwork has gotten like 10 times better since then. So I beefed up a couple pages, and I think I'm going to send it out and see what type of response I get from some of the publishers. And if I could get picked up, then it would be fantastic. Then I could just concentrate on the art, the story. Don't need to worry about anything else.
The whole business end of things, right?
Yeah, it's tough to do. My wife helps me, but it's just tough to do, by yourself. It's a lot of stuff that you got to do.
I can only imagine, man.
Yeah.
It's like, there's, 3 of us with the podcast, and there's still more to be done.
Right.
You're just one person doing a lot with the comic. I can imagine.
Exactly. So if I get picked up, it would be pretty awesome. Then I have national exposure, because obviously, depending on the publisher, they'll get me out to the stores pretty much throughout the whole United States, which is what I'm lacking now. It's just exposure.
It's distribution.
Yeah.
So what's the criteria for that?
So one of the publishers that I was looking into, I just got to kind of like send them artwork, send them kind of like an outline of the story, all the story arcs, and where the story's going, and then they go from there, So I have to scan all the stuff, and that's why I've been beefing up some of the pages, because I want to give them my best work. And when I started the project 3 years ago to now, it's like my work is night and day almost.
Right.
So I've been beefing up some of the pages, and I'm gonna send it out once I'm ready.
So is there like a way we can like annoy these publishers online till they're just like, all right, enough, we get it, you want it, done. Like,
yeah,
can we tweet them nonstop?
Absolutely. So I'll definitely keep you guys posted on when I do that, when I do send it in, and then that's when the attack could start.
Right on. Oh, the research team is here. Strolling in late.
So yeah, so it's pretty exciting. It's going to be, again, it's going to be some work, which I don't mind doing, and I think it'll be really good. Plus, if I do get picked up, the stuff that's out there now could become a pretty valuable collectible item. Especially
that's
those
good
that
for
collect.
us. That'll be really good for us, because
Yeah.
I have a couple early things.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, especially like issue 2 and 3, which are really like a really low run, print run. So
I think I have all 3 issues, if I'm not
Yeah,
mistaken,
you
right?
do, yeah.
And one of the pieces, like the original artwork
Yep.
pieces, one or
Yep.
two of those too.
Yeah, so So for the collectors, there's something there which I kind of wanted to give them something, special. So that's what I did, especially with the blank covers, which I sell at the shows, and it's original art on it, and it's not. It's like one of those things that where if there's only 500 of them, and then this blows up, those people that got it, have something special.
Yeah, That's super cool. It's the type of thing though. Like even if it turned out to be worth something, it's like not the type of thing I would sell though.
Right, exactly.
Because like we have a personal connection, but if it was like something else that I just so happen to have, I'd be like, yeah, let's eBay the shit out of this.
Exactly.
Let's eBay the shit out of this.
Exactly, which a lot of people do look for that type of stuff, especially when I'm working the shows, like talking to people, they like seeing variant covers and like things that are different.
The little obscurities that make things worth something down the road.
Right.
That's pretty cool. So I went to a Comic-Con probably about 10 years ago with you.
Right.
At the Javits Center, and they're pretty wild.
Yeah.
How many people go through like the Javits Center today? Tens of thousands, right?
Yeah. From 10 years ago to now, it's probably 5 times the amount of people that go to it. Maybe even 10 times the amount of people.
That's insane.
It's insane.
I remember everyone was dressed up and stuff like that. Always like a lot of like cool people, a lot of like throwback to like 80s action movies, like Dolph Lundgren types. And what was the guy who played the Hulk?
Lou Ferrigno.
Lou Ferrigno was there. I remember when I went, and a bunch of other notables. But I know they always have the cast of the Walking Dead now, super popular.
Yep, it's definitely very, very, very cool. Because and then the funny thing is, it's like if you do happen to see your character as being cosplayed, as they would say, then you got something.
That's when you've made it.
That's when you've made
when
it.
Somebody that you don't know is dressed up like something that someone you've created.
Exactly.
We're gonna dress Steve up as a zombie for the next one. He's already got the limp.
Yeah, but it's pretty cool too. The people that you meet, like the fans, the fanatics, that are walking around. And then even some of the celebrities, like the first show we did when we printed, I picked up the books on Friday, and there was a show in Jersey that weekend, so I just booked the table that night. It was available, and I could only do one day, so I did the one day, and we met Danny Trejo.
Mm-hmm.
He was walking by. We like just randomly. It's not even my style to do this either. We yelled his name out, like, "Hey, Danny!" and he came over. So. And he took a picture with us, and it's funny because I got up, shook his hand, and he was, he was like at my lower part of my chest. Like we could, he was like that small.
What?
Yeah.
I always thought he was like a really big dude. When you see him on television, you're like, whoa, that's a pretty big dude. Yeah. Like he's always playing like that like crazy like cartel leader or like some like Mexican badass desperado.
Like he's a real badass dude in real life, and he was pretty short.
Pint-sized sombrero.
Yeah. So I'm like, he's like, you want to take a picture? I'm like, yeah, definitely. So I went to stand next to him. He's like, why don't you sit down? So I sat down, and he came up behind. It's actually on my Instagram.
And that's why we all think he's big.
Right.
Yes.
You should have gotten some phone books for him.
Yeah. It was funny.
That's so funny. Yeah. When you started to talk about, like, I called him over, and I'm, like, thinking you were going to be like, my face was, like, up to the center of his chest. Because in my mind, I'm, like, a pretty tall dude. I'm 6'3", over 200 pounds. I figured I'm like, this dude's probably, like, 6'3", 6'4", like, 240.
Nah.
Little guy.
Yeah.
Tom Cruise size or a little bit
probably
bigger?
like Tom Cruise. I've never
Tom
seen
Cruise is a little dude?
Yeah.
Woo! Real little.
Yeah.
Real little.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, look at that. We got the photo there with Danny behind everybody.
Yep.
Oh, check that out.
Yeah. And see, he's smart. You're right, Eric. He does it on purpose because
he made me sit down.
It's hard to tell. Eddie, I got to say, bring the beard back, bro.
Yeah, I know. I go through my phases with the beard. Sometimes it's just a little tough to manage.
Yeah, I get that. I understand.
But my character has that beard, so I get to draw it pretty much every day.
So what's a typical day like at Comic-Con? Like, what's the process of like that Because you said you called and booked a table. Like, run me through the process of even, like, getting it and then what the day's like. Because I don't know shit about it.
Yeah, so we got to get there. They have, like, windows where you have to check in and get your table and stuff. So,
do you have to have, like, certain credentials for that? Like, do you...
Nah, and it was funny because when I first started, I was a little nervous about that because I was like, damn, I'm like completely trying to, like, invade this business by myself. And I'm like... Are they gonna look at me and be like, "Who the hell are you? Like, who let you book this table here?" You know what I mean?
Are there other artists and other creators that are all in like a
yeah,
similar position? They're like, "Yeah, we're getting out there. We got this idea, and we want to bring it out to market."
Yeah. There's a ton of creators, a ton of artists, and there's a ton of the mainstream guys, which pretty much pull most of the.
They're the ones everybody's there to see.
There to see, and then you reap the benefit from. Mm-hmm. It's like So people come to see celebrities, and then they come to see their favorite artist, and then we try to scramble to meet those people, and then try to create our own fans.
Your own group.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
So yeah, so there's a window of check-in time. We go in, we check in, we set up our table, and it's usually either the day before or really early in the morning, and they usually open at 10. So you kind of see all the behind-the-scenes stuff. Sometimes the celebrities are walking around, and so it's pretty cool. It's like you're inside, behind the scenes.
Do you see the cosplay chicks getting dressed?
No, they definitely come dressed.
I was going to say that some of those outfits are like super elaborate in the makeup job, so I imagine they're doing that. They either have somebody professionally that they have to go to see or comes to their hotel, but it seems like I bet some of those girls it takes a couple of hours, if not 3 or 4 hours to get ready sometimes.
And some of them their outfits are like insane. Like if they're doing some sort of anime like character, like they have all these different parts to it, and
they probably have helpers that have to help them get ready just because
100%.
You can't put it all together as a single person.
Yeah, 100%. Especially the ones that like are pretty famous online and stuff. They're buttoned up.
There was actually like that cosplay has gotten so popular. There was actually it was like some type of like reality / contest type show with the cosplayers on. It might have been A&E or one of the networks for a while. What? Sci-Fi. On the Sci-Fi network, where they would have like the different cosplayers come up with like the best types of themed costumes, and then they were judged.
Where they had to design their own, though. They had to design them, right?
Yeah, they were designing and building their own.
I think I saw that.
And then they would be judged by like the famous cosplayers.
Right. Yeah, they definitely have. Some of their outfits are like insanely like detailed and stuff, and I mean a lot of the guys actually, obviously. A lot of those women that do that are very in shape, or even the guys that come out, they're like, chisel out of their face, like, being Conan the Barbarian or some sort of insane character, or Spider-Man suit. Like, not everybody could wear a Spider-Man suit.
No, definitely not.
Whoever this chick is, I like.
Is she like Lara Croft from Tomb Raider or something? Or?
But then you have the brave ones too. That it doesn't matter. They wear it.
Oh, this is the best thing ever.
Yeah, same thing with spandex though. You have the brave ones that are like I don't call them brave. I call them they're criminals because they're committing crimes against all of us.
Yeah, it's pretty.
That looks painted on.
It probably is.
Yeah, I think it is. It definitely is.
Yeah.
Good for her, letting it all hang out. This is a real commitment.
So this is why people come to Comic-Con. This is why
this is one of the reasons.
This is why. What's the guy to girl ratio there? Like, is it like 3-to-1, or is it like out of every 10 you got like three women, seven dudes?
I would
or is
say
it like even?
Nah, it's definitely not even.
Definitely not
I don't
even.
think it's even.
Is it like a nightclub type ratio where it's like definitely more guys than girls, but
I feel that the nightclub ratio is still kind of even.
Okay.
Yeah, but this is I don't think it's even. Not yet, anyways.
It's getting there though.
It's getting there, yeah. But you see a lot of families too. Like a lot of people bring their kids. So, which are those are like the, just I guess not the, like the kids like the stuff that they want to see there, not necessarily.
Yeah,
the parents,
they want to go see Spider-Man.
Yeah.
They want to go see Batman and things like that.
Right.
That's got to be so cool. Just think about it. Like, I was a tremendous comic book fan. I had a comic book collection as a child.
Get out of here. You were a comic book nerd?
No, I wasn't a nerd, but I liked comic books. And I used to collect Superman comic books. Superman comic books, and then when Image came out as like
Yes.
a manufacturer, I used to buy their first editions of like everything that they
Everything,
came
yeah.
out with.
What's Image?
That's another publisher. They're
Yeah.
like the independent publisher.
Would you call it like
Yeah.
number 3 as
Yeah, it's
far as
number
they go?
3,
Like not
yeah.
DC, not Marvel, Image probably.
What they do?
They did Walking Dead. Yeah,
Did they?
The
Yeah.
Walking
See,
Dead,
that was
yeah.
way after I've been involved.
Yeah.
Shadowhawk, I think,
Well,
was
they-
there when I was a kid.
Well, they started. It was like 5 different artists that were like big time artists at Marvel and DC. They kind of like left. And it's actually a really cool show that they kind of run through the history of that. And they left those 2 companies because they felt they were being unfairly treated, and they started their own company.
Interesting.
And
Yeah.
now they're the third largest
They're the
publisher,
third largest,
right?
yeah.
Who else did they? They've Spawn.
They had Spawn, yeah.
They had
Yep.
Spawn.
Yep.
Shadowhawk, I remember. There were a
Yeah.
couple. There were a handful of others that I have like the first editions
Yeah,
of.
yeah, and but they're like the best. Like that's one of the ones that I'm gonna target to send the book to, because it's owned, like you own it. You know, they publish it, but you own the rights to.
Oh,
your
really?
characters.
So
Yeah.
they don't. But the other companies, what try to muscle their way
Well,
in.
the other companies
in
will
case it
more than
takes
likely
off.
buy you out, or whatever the case may be. Like if you work for Disney, I remember when I was in college, and they say if you work for Disney, no matter what, if you design a character on a piece of toilet paper,
They own that shit.
they own it.
It's interesting that you bring this up. I used to work for Motorola, and that's part of your employment agreement. That if you develop anything,
Yeah,
Yeah,
Even in your spare time.
even if it's at your house.
it's theirs. They own it.
it's theirs.
You're not allowed to design anything because it's kind of like a non-compete clause in a way.
Yeah.
Because you could create something that could potentially be in competition with their
Competition
product,
with their product.
so
yeah.
they automatically own it.
Yeah, exactly. So they're a good source for artists to go and they publish a lot of books. They publish a lot of stuff. And then some stuff takes off. Like The Walking Dead was huge when it started off. I mean, issue 1 on that right now, resale is like you're looking at $2,000 or $3,000.
Really?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
nuts. So Steve,
Yeah.
so we just found out that Steve, our tech guy, has a big smile on his face
Yeah,
because he has it.
So if you get it graded and it's like a 9.8, you're definitely looking at least $2,500 to $3,000.
It's not bad.
But if and I guess non-graded, you're probably looking at $1,500, depending on how the condition is.
That's
So,
pretty
and
badass.
And again, it was a low run. I think they only produced like 7,000 issues, their first issue, and it was one of the only comics that usually, as you print comic books, that like the issue 1 will be the most, then issue 2 would be about half. They'll print half of the first issue. So if they ran a 10,000 print run on the first one, they'll do a 5,000, on the second one. And that one they did more because the demand was there.
That's not bad.
Yeah. So yeah. So
I didn't realize a comic book that's that new
could be worth that much.
could
yeah.
be worth that much, especially like I know with what happened when the internet became prevalent, how the values pretty much all dropped across the board for like those types of collectibles.
Yeah, I mean everything goes up and down. Like I think that's pretty much with pretty much anything. You could look at stocks. You could look at Bitcoin now. Like it all goes up. It all goes down.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, comics are up.
Are they? They're
Yeah.
up right now.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. I just know that I remember there being initial dip with baseball cards and comic
Right.
books, just
Yeah.
because back in the day, like say you had a rare comic book, and it just so happened to find its way into like your local store.
Right.
Like it wasn't like you would go to another comic book store and buy that. It might be something that this is the only time you're ever going to see it over the course of your lifetime. But like you might think like, oh, maybe there's only 100 of these in the country,
Right.
because that's all there is for sale at like the major stores. Really, there's 10,000 of them in private collections. But like after eBay came out, you were like, oh shit, I thought I was the only one that had this.
Yeah.
Look, there's 47 of them when I searched. I paid $300 for this, and they're going for $32
I
now.
know, it's crazy.
I had a whole bunch of that. Happen to me.
And now you have so much access to the artist, so you get signatures on it, and this company that does the grading thing they're making money hand over fist right now. Hand over fist, just doing it.
Because you have to do that if you want to actually like get something sold, right? It has to be graded.
That would be the best way. Yeah, that would be the best way.
A friend of mine mails out his comics by the box
to
be graded.
Yep.
And he's got probably, the boxes, the file boxes that I'm talking about, he's probably got about 15, 25 of those right now. I think he's got 3 out right now. But the Walking Dead stuff, I had no idea. I have some very unusual stuff, or like Eric said, maybe it's not as unusual as I thought. But I had access to somebody whose sister worked for A&E. So I was getting all the cast party goodie bags.
Oh, nice.
And I have like the reissued #1 with the cast in it and all of that jazz.
Yeah.
I don't know if they made a lot or a little. I'm kind of hoping you're going to tell me something really good.
Well, it depends. Like that stuff, it could be worth a lot because they probably didn't print a lot,
Right. I was under the impression it was just for that party kind of a thing.
Yeah, so that's like really exclusive. So
I even
that
have
could be
like
something
tote bags and stuff that were just for that.
for those parties. Yeah.
Oh, that's so interesting.
And even like first appearance of a character, it's not necessarily just the #1 issue. It could be if
the
they
first appearance of a specific character.
Wolverine, which would be
like
Hulk.
Wolverine and
76. Don't quote me.
No, I think it's in the more in the 3s or 4s, but and then like the first appearance of like a character in The Walking Dead, like Michonne, like her issue goes for a lot of money. Graded goes for a lot of money, or a death of a character. So you're looking at people collect that type of stuff.
What's the Death of Superman comic book worth now?
Well, that's funny.
Still about $25.
Probably around $20.
Nobody lost it.
But the thing was, they knew they were gonna get like big hits, so they printed
lots of them,
lots of issues. So there's tons of those issues out there.
The stuff that everyone is going to hoard is not going to be worth anything. You want to find stuff that nobody cared about, so everybody threw it away. So there's like 4 left,
and then you got to keep it for 75 years.
Exactly.
You had to be the kid sending out for the Kool-Aid comic books that nobody cared about.
Nobody cared about.
And there's 2 of them.
And that's the funny thing too. A lot of people back then thought they're like, "Oh, I'm going to put my kids through college with this," and really, not likely. So a lot of people invested and lost.
But that's just like anything else. You never know what's going to be big down the road, and you never know what's going to like actually die.
Right. Exactly.
Has there been any like growth in like the digital comic thing at all?
Yeah,
did that become a thing?
It's a huge thing, and I think that's especially as the next generation starts to grow up, it's gonna pretty much, I would say, hurt the comic industry pretty hard because everybody's doing digital, and a lot of like the non-comic book collectors that are interested in a story, they'll just go online and download it to read it. I have a lot of friends that do that. Like they won't even buy it. They'll find it.
If they follow a particular character, they'll just find somebody that uploaded it somewhere.
Yeah,
do
they'll
torrents
find it.
or just in, or are these people giving out that content for free?
Well, there are sites that you can buy digital,
right.
But you can find, if it's out there to buy it, you can find it for free, you know.
Absolutely.
But I mean, even if you find it for free, I guess it's still exposure, But a lot of people that I know that kind of like the Walking Dead show and wanted to read the comic book. They'll just go online.
They do it online just because it's easier and more simplistic for them.
Exactly.
Do you think there's a market out there to do comic books almost the way YouTube or even porn does, where you get people to subscribe, you release, an issue per whatever month, week, whatever, and it's free,
right?
But you get the ad revenue.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely a route to look into. I don't think anybody's doing anything specifically like that. I know. I think it's called.
We just copyrighted that. So back to
we're not at Motorola, man.
We know that like women have those like love novels, and I think you mentioned this to me for the first time, Dave, that you knew somebody that wrote for one of those like installments, and they had to write like, I don't know, whatever it was, 50 pages a month or something like that. And they would come out 25 pages every 2 weeks come out, and the women pay their $5 a month to subscribe to like this like romance novel.
Yeah.
And they get those downloaded right to the phone on the Kindle,
Yeah.
and they get to read that shit twice a month.
Yeah,
they
from
get
like
all
the
turned
Amazon
on.
Marketplace.
Oh, I got those new 15 pages. They get all sweaty.
Yeah. I feel like if that's what's going to be the next wave of comics, like you said, was hurting the industry. Yeah, you got to do something like that where, you know, it's free, it doesn't cost them anything, and maybe, you know, you could do it like suggested donations if they want, but then you get the ad revenue.
Yeah,
you get enough eyes driven to the site.
It's like a web series. A lot of independent filmmakers do that. Like they'll do a web series and they'll produce a show, like a 20-minute or 15-minute series of like some sort of crime drama in the city, and they're just filming, you know, with actors and stuff. So I mean, it's not a bad idea. I mean, I personally don't know if there's anybody that's doing that. It might be, but you know, it's not a bad route to go.
The other thing is, I feel like it's such a shame to lose the amount of work, like the animation and the amount of work and artistry that you put into each issue, just for it to be something that's like digitally downloaded and people can't physically feel. Like, I'm a tremendous reader of regular books,
Right.
and people always say to me, like, oh, what do you read that on your Kindle or you read it on your phone? And I downloaded one book once on my phone, and I was just like, oh, I was traveling. It was a book that I really wanted to read, and I forgot to bring my book with me. So I'm like, oh, fuck it, I'll give it a whirl. And that was the only book I've ever downloaded. And then when I got home, I bought a regular book of the same book, and I read the regular copy just because I don't like reading things online. I like holding something physically. I like the way that it makes me feel when I hold it.
Right.
I also take notes, and I like to take notes in the front and the backs of the books.
I like the way it makes me feel when you hold me.
You're not the first person to say that, Dave.
Well, that's the thing too. Like a lot of, and there's nothing wrong with it. A lot of artists do stuff, you know, on the computer, you know, and the crazy thing is, like, you see some of these lines, and I was watching, I forget who it was some online video where he did like a circle, and then he hit the snap button, and it snapped that line like perfect. I'm like, damn. like I do that on paper, and it's like I have to erase it like 3 times to really get it, you know, to get that right angle, you know. So is it cheating? I don't know, you know.
I feel like it loses a little bit of its soul.
Right.
If that's any like constellation.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
I come from I have a background in like surveying and engineering, and I don't know, when I sit down and like draft something by hand, it would give me an entirely different feel for the project that after we started to like utilize like CAD.
Right.
It's the same thing. Like, you look at like a CAD drawing of a house, and you're like, yeah, that's going to be a cool house when they build it. But when you look at an actual like drafter's sketch of like a model home or something like that, you're like, oh yeah, I feel that. It's beautiful.
Exactly.
Like, you feel it a
It's
little bit more.
Yeah,
You
it's
feel
a different
it.
feel.
And not for nothing, I come from a computer background, and I feel the same way. Like, there's something about even with the movies, particularly.
Yeah.
Right. Like
Having CGI?
Yeah,
it's like
CGI
overdone,
versus
yeah.
like actual props. You know,
I don't watch any CGI movies. Not as like, it's not something that I like actively think like, oh, I'm not going to go see that because it's CGI. It's something that I realized that when CGI began, I no longer liked to see like most of the fantasy style movies.
Right.
And I don't know if it's just because, I don't know, you ever watched like a war scene in a movie that was filmed in like the 90s or the 80s, and you're like, whoa, this was a massive amount of work.
Yeah.
Look at all those extras. Look how realistic, like, it looks so real.
You
and then
appreciate it more.
You appreciate it. Then you watch a war movie now, and it's like there's like 2 or 3, maybe there's like 6 actual people in the scene, and the rest are just like CGI background noise, blurred into like no man's land.
Well, the thing too is that a lot of kids now that are, you know, really young are growing up with tablets and phones in their hand, so that's what they're going to be used to.
Yeah.
So they are the ones that are going to phase out. That, I mean, there'll still be a market, obviously, for art and something that's like done by hand.
Mm-hmm.
It'll just cost more.
Mm-hmm.
What you just mentioned about the new generation, Steve, tell the story. When me and Steve worked together, Steve has a media server in his house, and he put together with an old CRT tube monitor and stuff. He put together a little computer for his kids so that they could access their cartoons and stuff. And he set up all the metadata to be pulled, so they had the
it was
the artwork and stuff. Tell the story about what happened.
I was so proud of this thing, and it was gorgeous, and I had it all I had a web interface. It was beautiful, and the things, because the kids couldn't read, so the pictures it was pulling from IMDb, it was scraping the pictures and the covers, so they knew, what they wanted, whatever. So my daughter calls, Daddy, it's not working. And I just put it a week. I'm like, my ass, it's not working. What happens? I run downstairs and it's working perfectly. And I'm like, I don't understand. So I'm like, no, it's fine. It's good. And she's like, okay. And Daddy, it's not working. Daddy's anyway. Long story short, I finally just show me. And she's sitting there with this old tube CRT, and she's sitting there pressing the screen, and she's like, it doesn't work.
Pressing the screen with her finger for the listeners.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm moving my hands like everyone can see me. So she's pressing the screen with her fingers, and I'm like, no, you have to use the mouse. And she just gave me this look, like, what the fuck is a mouse? And I was like, oh my God, you don't know how to use a mouse? So it's like, oh my God. It was just such a moment to see. I had no clue what a keyboard or a mouse was, because everything's on a screen.
Right. And think about what's going to happen
it's crazy.
5 years from now.
Her kids are going to be like, you had to touch the screen, Mommy?
Yeah. You didn't just think about it?
You didn't just think it there?
This is ridiculous.
Exactly.
What a crazy amount of work that was. Your arms must have got real tired touching the screen.
A remote, how archaic.
And
we used to have to get up.
Did you ride a horse there?
It's just nuts. And I'm sure, if I was to do stuff on the computer, it'd probably take me half the time to do the pages that I'm doing now.
Maybe not. You have to think about, just because the capability's there doesn't mean it's being done properly. Take CGI, for example, back to the movies. Everything's CGI now, just like we were saying, right? But you look at some of these movies, just like Eric was saying earlier, and it's like, oh, that's clearly, that's poorly done.
Yeah, it's
like
perfect. Fake, yeah.
Right. A perfect example is the later Lord of the Ring movies. The armies, you're like, really?
Yeah.
They're terrible.
Yeah.
But one of the best, in my opinion, CGI uses was Jurassic Park, and that's also one of the first.
One of the first, yeah.
And it was just done right. And if you do it right, I feel like it's still a thing, but even that being said, I prefer
touching it,
to hold it, to have it, to know. The Wizard of Oz would not be, wouldn't be, who would be wowed by The Wizard of Oz if it was digital?
Right.
Nobody. But when you watch it now, you're like, holy shit! Somebody made every leaf, every brick, and that's insane.
Yeah, even when you look at the Disney cartoons from back in the day versus now, backgrounds are drawn, like you said, every leaf is pretty much drawn. A lot of work, a lot of manpower, but
they invented cameras and different methods to try to make something like that. That's how an art progresses. Is when somebody says, we really want to do this, but we can't, so we have to come up with something that'll make that happen. That's what they did with Bambi, to make the backgrounds move.
Right.
They made those levels, and they filmed through them and all that stuff. So, they came up with a new technique, and it blew people away, and then that was the new standard.
Right.
Before that, Mary Poppins, where they mixed real-life actors with the animation.
Yeah.
Right. And so that was they kept upping the game,
yeah.
and then you come up with digital, and it's just like, oh yeah, just do it on the fucking computer.
Before that, it was just Charlie Chaplin. Why don't you say something?
Well,
silent
no,
movies.
No, but don't laugh. Even Charlie Chaplin did crazy shit. They had all these camera tricks. The guy wasn't risking his life every shot. When you see him, roller skating up to the edge of that. I don't know if you actually watched Charlie Chaplin, but there's scenes where he's roller skating and he stops on the edge of a 5-story drop, and you're like, holy shit, how'd they do that? And it's a camera with a picture of the library
Of
painted
a 5-story
of a drop.
building,
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's all trickery and
it's all
so,
angles.
Yeah, it's
Which,
so
you
well
know,
done.
Which now they're doing on Instagram.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, working at booty.
It was
the camera
MySpace
angles.
before that.
Yeah, make that girl. She's man. Oh man, look at this girl I'm gonna hook up with, and then you see her, and you're just like, oh. Hey, I'm here for Mindy. I'm Mindy. You're not the Mindy on Instagram.
That's so
You didn't
funny.
bring that Valencia filter with you.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
must have left it in the car,
Yeah,
bitch.
we're
Go
gonna-
back.
Yeah, we're gonna have to. Is this Rise or Hudson? We're gonna have to change this.
You look like Dog Patch to me.
So with the book, obviously it's not. I mean, my color artist is digital, obviously, but the artwork isn't. And besides that, I'm trying to really focus on a story that people could connect to, kind of almost relate to, a realistic story, even though it's not a realistic situation. But you never know these days. And with the martial arts, I'm trying to take my experiences with martial arts and then being in real situations in my life, from working at clubs, and actually being in sticky situations, like taking those experiences and trying to put it into this book, where I'm hoping as people read it and they see the movements and see the body language, that they could relate to it and be like, oh, okay, that's something I would do in that situation, or that's how I would react in that situation.
Well, people like that. Like when I get sucked into something, I'm always like, oh, what would I have done? What would I have done? And you know what I really like? When I think this is the common sense thing to have done, and then the person does it actually.
Right.
And I feel like many times, I don't know, at least in my case, I'm like super pragmatic, like utilitarian.
Right.
Like that doesn't really make for like a good show.
Right.
Usually you need somebody to be like fucked up or do something like half retarded.
Right.
In order to make like an amazing story. But like whenever you like put yourself in that position, that's what you're trying to do with your like viewer base. Like, oh, what would I do? What would I do? You want to like suck them in. And once you get that like what would I do, that's when you know you have them, right?
Well, isn't that's the goal, like, with all that stuff, I think, right? I mean, books, movies, and things like that. It's mapping that experience onto yourself every time, and that's the
to
allure of
immerse
it.
themselves in it.
And the better you are at telling the story, the easier it is for whoever's watching it to do that, I feel like.
Exactly. And also it's so crazy trying to figure out the angles, like if I'm doing a fight scene, because comic fight scenes are not, you look at a fight scene even on television or in a movie, it's like sometimes they're a little outlandish, right? So I'm trying to make the angles where, all right, that it flows like a martial art would flow, like when you're rolling, you're flowing, right? So I want it to almost flow on the page, where somebody who knows the art could be like, wow, that's cool. Mm-hmm. And somebody who doesn't know was like, wow, that's cool. You know what I mean? Like,
they almost expect it to go that way anyway because it's such an organic.
Right.
Well, that was like the difference between like watching television fight scenes from like 15 or 20 years ago, and now like watching television fight scenes after like the UFC has become more prevalent. Like people sort of have an idea as to what actual fighting looks like.
Right.
So it's like one thing if you're going to see a movie and it's like, say, a comic book theme movie or like something with supernatural people. Like, okay, yeah, like we get it. Like this girl can fly through the air and do crazy kicks and karate chop people. That's cool. But if you're going to see like a realistic movie that there is no magic in or anyone with special powers, like you want to see a realistic fight scene that makes sense. But in the 90s, 80s, or before, like you're seeing people hit guys with judo chops to the back of the head and hit them with the Spock, and people are dying from the death touch.
Fighting and training ruined action movies for me because now that I know what it really is, it's much harder for me to suspend my disbelief.
Right.
So when I watch like piss poor fight scenes, that are outlandish or just sloppy, it bothers me.
Yeah. Yeah.
It depends on the seriousness of the movie. Like,
Right.
if the movie, sometimes you get a movie that tries to come off. Sometimes you get a movie that's sort of like joking, like, oh yeah, they got into a fight, and it's like whatever. And then sometimes you see a movie where you have like, I'm trying to think of like a good example off the top of my head, but I can't really think of anything. But like John Wick or something like.
John Wick was good.
Yeah, but like, say you had a movie
They
like
go-
that.
they
with
go a little far.
If you had a movie like that, but with crappy fight scenes or
Right.
like
It would be
unrealistic
terrible.
fight scenes, like
any
I can't do it anymore.
Like any Steven Seagal movie.
Right.
Yeah.
You know what
Right.
I mean? Like, and again, the potential was there.
Yep.
You know, they could have done some cool stuff.
He's getting attacked by 75 people at the same time. They're all getting flipped over by finger locks.
Right,
And like
right.
he's breaking their arms
Yeah.
over his shoulder like a
Yeah.
2x4.
Yeah.
The thing,
Breaking an arm off, hitting another guy with it like nunchucks.
not even just that, simple things too. Like you see somebody get kicked in the face or in the head hard, and they just like get up and keep fighting hard. It's like, no, man,
Well-
that's not how it happens.
Yeah.
Well,
And-
the hero throws one punch and knocks a guy out, and then takes like 60.
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know, and
yeah.
like Indiana Jones is a perfect example. Of
Right.
that, right. He gets the shit kicked out of him, and he's like, "I just got to get one shot on you, buddy."
And that's fine. You know, toughness is toughness, right? But another thing too that I really want to kind of show is that when you're punching somebody and you're not wearing gloves, your hands are gonna be balloons. You know what I mean? Like little simple things like that. Where and I feel like John Wick kind of got that. Like he was beat up, even though he was the man. You know what I mean? Like fighting, he was still kind of beat up. He was like limping. Like you felt his pain, which I thought was which was good.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of like the approach that I'm going with my book as well. Is like you're gonna feel the character, even though he's really good at what he does and he's a great martial artist.
You'll know he's been through something.
You know he's been through something. He's not just gonna be walking around like he's gonna have the
Supernatural
scars.
recovery, like everybody
like
does in every
supernatural
movie.
recovery.
This
Exactly.
guy just got done fighting 15 people. He got hit in the head with a can, kicked in his face, and just
and he's fine.
yeah, he's not even rocked a little bit.
Yeah.
He's still disarming a bomb right after that. Like,
Right.
dude, you just got hit in the head 47 times.
Yeah, you cannot even probably pick up anything. So that's the approach, and again, I'm trying to use my real experiences and trying to make it pop out of the book.
So are you going to incorporate? Do you have any without giving it away? You like you said, you've been a bouncer for quite some time.
Yeah.
You got any stories or pieces of stories that have found their way in?
There will be.
Okay.
Not right now, but I mean, you could eat like ton. Like, there's gonna be because in the book it's called Day One. So every character I introduce is gonna have a flashback to their day one. So you're gonna see what happened, right? And they all they live in a certain area. A lot of people know each other, and they're gonna bump into people that they know, that they have history with. And one of the main villains that I introduce later on in the book has a really bad history with the main character. So I'm going to flash back to that, where they get into a little tiff, the two guys, in a bar.
Okay.
So there you're going to see some stuff that happens, that I've seen happen in a bar.
Right. Okay.
And I can't wait to draw that, because that I feel like I have it all mapped out in my head, and it's like it's gonna look so cool. And the bad guy, the main bad guy, he's a monster. Like he's gonna be like 6'7", like not necessarily a juice head, but like just a beast of a guy.
Right.
So it's gonna
Like
make for a
Steve.
good fight.
Can you incorporate like one of my old fights that you and I were involved with into this somehow, like something like real cool, just so like I'll know, I'll be like, yeah, I was there for that.
Oh, 100%, 100%. And as you read, like you're gonna be like, oh, I remember that.
I know exactly.
I know exactly what happened there. Yeah. So again, it's gonna be fun, and it's gonna be like, it's tedious to draw, but I think it'll be worth it, especially if once people get into it. And if I get picked up and I could like really like kind of just concentrate on the artwork, it'll be even better.
Is that the goal?
That's
Get
good.
picked up so that you
Yeah.
can do what you like, which is focusing on the
On
art and the
yeah,
writing.
Exactly. That is the ultimate goal, is to do that.
What is the split right now? Is it like a 50-50 split, or is it more business than doing the artistic portion of it?
From what I've read, Image, you own it 100%.
No, I just mean like time wise for you
right
now.
now it's probably like because it's probably like 30% of my day. I come home from work, hang out with my son for a couple hours. He goes to sleep, and then I'll draw for 3 to 4 hours.
And that's the drawing aspect. But is the business what compared to the business drawing versus business? What is it? Like you out there at the shows? Like
so that's like even though when I'm at the shows, I just bring my pads and I do a lot of drawing there. I the way I look at it is I buy studio time.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? So and then I engage people obviously, but it's pretty much the way I look at it is I buy studio time.
Nice. When isn't New York Comic Con coming up? Or when is that?
That's in October.
Oh, October.
Yeah,
okay.
That's in October.
I feel like when we went, it was in the spring for some reason. I don't know
it's
why.
in the beginning of October every month, but that's a tough one to get into.
Just because what? Just the biggest and the most packed, or?
Yeah, it's the biggest, and the way to go is Artist Alley.
Okay.
And
what's that?
That's where all the artists are. So they call it Artist Alley. So it's like a big room, and it's just all artists. So you could go up and down.
So you're
the
not
aisles.
with like the movie people. You're not with like the gimmicks and things like that. You're
with
there
all
for the
other
actual,
artists.
the comic artists.
Yep.
Now, does a table like that go for an absorbent amount of money compared to like you said before? You just called and got a table. If you wanted to go into there,
so
I'm guessing.
So the reason why it's so hard to get into Artist Alley is because it is the cheapest way to go.
Oh, is that true?
It's the cheapest way to go, and they kind of like curate it. They don't necessarily take everybody because they don't have the room to take everybody. But then you have your big artists, which are pretty much, I would assume, are automatic, and then you have whatever's left. And it's a good rotation. Actually, New York, from what I've seen, they do a good rotation. I tried last year. I was put on the waiting list. I'm hoping this year we'll have success. But if you want a table in the main room, which wouldn't be a bad investment, but it's a lot of money. It's a huge investment.
In the thousands?
Yeah.
For a day?
No, for the weekend.
Oh, for the weekend.
Yeah, for the weekend.
Still, that's
still
significant.
A lot.
Yeah, sure.
So we're starting a Kickstarter.
Yeah. just for the table. But you want to be an Artist Alley because that's where that's where a lot of the people are going there to look for the artwork.
Yeah, the people that are serious about that, not the kids that are there just to see somebody dressed up like Superman.
Exactly.
Or guys like me are there to see boobs.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, and Dave. Sorry, Dave.
That's why they make two of them.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's tough to get in for New York because it is so big, and it's they get so many people who submit, but I'll keep trying.
How about some of the other shows, like the non-Comic-Con shows? Like I know there are some horror shows.
Yeah, those are pretty, those are pretty easy as long as you get to them on time. Because obviously, if they sell out, then you can't get in. But which was our issue our first year. But we're still technically not at our first year. May will be actually June 1st will be a full year. But when we released it in May, at the end of May last year, a lot of those shows were already booked up.
Wow.
So I couldn't get in. So this year we kind of jumped on them right away. They have they have dates where they start taking the submissions for tables. So we
So you got to keep track of all of them and be like, it's the 15th. I got to call up this place.
Exactly. Which is again a lot of work. And my wife helps me out with that. Like if I had to do that as well, it would just drive me nuts. Right? Yeah, it would drive me nuts. Yeah. But so I just did a horror con, which was really good. I did it last year.
Where was that?
That was in Jersey.
In Jersey.
Yeah.
And what is the difference between like a horror con and a regular Comic Con? Aside from obviously it's going to be more horror, whatever.
Yes, that's going to be mainly horror based, like horror movies. There was a ton of celebrities from old horror films, which was pretty cool because there was some people in them I was wondering what happened to you.
Really?
Yeah, so
some of those chicks that were real hot when they were teenagers or in their early 20s got killed off.
Elvira's still around.
Well,
Elvira's still hot, man.
Well, if you remember Halloween, the first one, Remember the girl that got choked with the wire?
Yeah.
And she's the one that actually shows her boobs in the movie. Like, she was there. And you're like,
How does she look now?
well, she's older.
She's
She's definitely not, And it's funny because you kind of have them, you remember them from that movie. Like,
yeah, that's it. That's it. What else did they do?
right. And another one that actually boggled my mind was the original It. It was Tim Curry.
Mm-hmm.
He is in a wheelchair.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
I was like,
We have something in common.
yeah, I was like blown away. I didn't even know. You know what I mean? Like, I remember him from Clue and from those movies, and that's how I remember him. But a lot of people go to see the celebrities, and then you catch them, as they walk around.
Has anyone seen the new It?
Yeah, I saw it.
Was it good?
Yeah, it was pretty good.
I heard good things. but I
Eddie's
didn't
seen
see
every movie, Dave.
I've seen a lot. Yeah.
Every
Yeah.
movie.
I actually just did a It drawing too when I was
saw
there.
it. It was
yeah,
great.
Thanks.
I
Yeah.
have it. I think I saved it on my
Yeah.
Instagram.
Yeah.
My wife is petrified of it. I was like, I cannot wait to
Yeah.
There's Steve on the red carpet. What happened to him?
I don't know. I think he has some sort of. He might have Lou Gehrig's or something.
Oh wow,
Yeah, it's a shame. Yeah.
Rocky Horror.
that's 2 podcasts in a row. Lou Gehrig's disease has come up. We were talking about the passing of Stephen Hawking last night, so
Oh
we
yeah.
got into that.
It's amazing how long he was in that chair for a long time, right?
He got diagnosed
Yeah.
at 21 years old.
It's wild.
Died
In
76.
It kills most
76.
people within 2 years.
Yeah.
That's unbelievable.
Makes you wonder, right? Like his brain power versus his body.
His
Maybe
will,
he couldn't handle
he
it.
just willed himself alive.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
possible. Good God.
I believe that you can definitely will yourself past certain things.
Agreed.
I read this book when I was in 7th grade. It stuck with me for some reason with this, what we're talking about here. It's called this movie called Walkabout, book called Walkabout. And it was about the Aboriginals in Australia in the outback. And I don't remember enough of the whole story, but these kids somehow get lost in the outback, and they find this Aborigine kid. And he's like walking them back to safety or whatever. And so the Aboriginals had this irrational fear of photographs. That if you get your picture taken,
Take your soul.
Yes.
Can't have
So
that.
it'll take your soul and kill you. So the kid took the photograph of the Aboriginal, and he, because he believed this, almost like a placebo, willed himself to death in the next 2 days.
It's crazy.
Just by dwelling and thinking about it, and 2 days later he died.
Scary.
And I remember, like, that always stuck with me from when I was in, like, 7th grade. I'm like, holy shit, your mind is, like, the most powerful thing there is. Like, belief in anything, it has insane power.
Yeah.
You know?
It's
Absolutely.
what gets you off the couch, right? Do I go train tonight? Do I go and sit at the table and draw for 4 hours? Yeah, let me go do that. Or I'll sit here and watch, a movie and eat myself to oblivion.
Well, whichever one you decide to make stronger in your mind, yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Or, just even, I remember when I first started going to see my neurologist, and I first started getting medicine for my headaches, and he advised me to stop taking the Excedrin migraines I used to take. I'm like, no, they work. He's like, they don't fucking work. I'm like, no, they do. He goes, it's placebo. He goes, physiologically, they do not work because the time it takes for your body to metabolize them and deliver the medicine is past the threshold for when you can, use medicine. He's like, this is why you have the injection, because it's delivered quicker. He's like, anytime it worked, it was just placebo. I was like, whoa, shit.
Yeah.
Even when I was in rehab, same thing. They were like, just envision. I'd spend hours staring at my stupid fucking legs and just be like, just envision them moving. Like envision what it was
It's weird.
like.
I do that too. I stare at your legs and envision it. It never happens.
They move a little now. Well, from the knees up, them. But that's just it. Like eventually, quad fired, and I was like, holy shit! Like it's crazy. But you have to think about. You have to physically, especially when you're paralyzed. You have to envision it because
Right.
it's like the line's cut. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That reminds me of Kill Bill.
Yeah. Move that toe.
Yeah.
Move that toe. And then,
Move
like,
that
it's
toe.
like 5 hours later.
Move that toe.
Yeah.
Totally realistic fight scenes in that movie.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just looking up Tim Curry's IMDb.
He's been everything.
This guy's been one of the
Oh my
most
God.
busy workers
Prolific.
in all of Hollywood.
Yeah.
Like, I'm looking at 96 right now. Just look at the stuff he's been in since 96. It's like absolutely astronomical.
That's just 96?
We're up to 2000 now. That was 4 years.
Shit.
This dude's in at least a half dozen to a dozen projects a year. Like, we're talking stuff in other languages. I'm looking at titles now that are in languages that I don't even know what these characters are called.
Yeah, it's wild. Clue was my favorite.
Really?
Yeah, I loved him in Clue.
He looks like one of the characters in Clue. Working up until 2017, so he's still getting after it, doing voice acting.
Voice acting, wow.
Not bad.
I gotta keep busy, I guess, right?
Hustling.
How old is he?
46.
No, he was born in 46,
Born in
right?
46.
I'm not going to be able to do that, man. I'm not the guy to do that.
He's about 72.
Damn,
72 years old, still kicking. I hope I'm still kicking it at 72.
72, I mean, I kind of feel like it's depending on how you treat yourself.
Oh, yeah.
70 could be like, okay, you're almost done, or 70 can still be pretty good. Like, you got 70 to 80, like, you still got 10 more good years.
How much damage have you put yourself through?
I think that drinking,
body-wise?
if you look
Not
at
even
people,
drinking, if you eliminate drinking.
But I mean, getting yourself banged up, like, all right, maybe you won't be able to walk that great, or maybe you'll have some aches and pains, but like, you just got through that shit.
Yeah.
I feel like drinking takes years
Right.
off your life, and not even like a heavy drinker, just like a casual drinker, like handful of beers, like maybe a 12-pack a week.
Right.
Spread out a couple beers, like 2 beers a day. I think that takes a long time
Absolutely.
off the end of your life.
Absolutely. If you just forget about the pollutant side of that, I think I've really started to think more and more about what Rhonda Patrick speaks about with, if you think of your body almost as like a mechanical system. The more you demand of it in those terms, like, if you eat all the time, your metabolism's working all the time. You only have
processing food and producing enzymes to break down that.
It can
food
only
all
do
the
that so
time.
many times. It's got a number. Every
Right.
human body, your heart has a number.
That's it.
So
This many times.
if you have that number lower into your 70s, you're probably going to last longer. It's like mileage on a car. Like keep that lease under 15,000 miles every year.
If you look at somebody like, just take Donald Trump, for example. How old is he? Is he 72 now?
72.
70s, yeah.
72, and that guy doesn't drink alcohol at all.
Right.
But he also eats like shit.
It eats out of
Never
McDonald's.
drank, never smoked.
But I mean, does he really eat McDonald's, or is that, you know what I mean? Like, that could be a shtick.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that guy looks pretty good for 72, because my grandmother just passed away of Alzheimer's at, like, the same, and she hasn't looked as good as he's looked since she was in her 50s.
Right.
So, like, when you, like, it just depends on how well you take care of yourself. And all those little things, like, people are, I'm young. That shit all compounds, and nobody realizes how much it compounds, like compounding interest. It compounds exponentially.
Yeah.
And it compounds harder as you age.
Oh,
Yeah.
so hard.
And then it hits you out of nowhere.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, I've seen it happen to younger people. In the time that I've worked at the bar on Fire Island, I have seen time wreak havoc on several people, and not even long amounts of time. I'm talking
4 years, 5 years.
yeah,
Well-
where you see both men and women alike, years prior, the shape they were in, and then just the way they party day in and day out for those years. All of a sudden, 4 or 5 years rolls by, and it's like they aged 20 years. It's
Dude.
insane.
I started bouncing, I would say, 23 years ago.
Wow.
So I was 17. So do the math, right? I'm 41. I'm going to be 41 in a couple months. And the people that I've seen from when I started, and they come around, and it's funny how you remember them too. You're like, wow,
That girl was so hot.
Yeah, it was like a girl that was like slamming hot. Like, holy cow, she's really hot. Or even a guy who was like a juice head, ripped
Great
out his
shape,
face,
yep.
great shape. Then you see him again now, and you're like, wow.
Yeah, what the fuck
What
happened
kind
to you?
of toll did that take on you?
What happened to that dude?
Dude, that was one of the real big things when I began working, why I never got like super into doing steroids or juice. And I remember working at Neptune's and having conversations with some of the older guys in their mid to late 40s.
Yeah.
And I was like, how old was I when I started working? 20 or 20? I was 21, I think, when I got hired there. And I remember being like, oh, yeah, I would be real cool to be big like those dudes. They're getting all the hot chicks. And then you talk to those guys that were like in their last year of bouncing, and they were just like, don't do it.
Yeah.
You're going to look like shit. You're going to be a fucking fat, old, 300-pound piece of shit.
Yeah.
Because you wanted to have like 5 or 10 glorious years when you were in your 20s.
The trade-off is not worth it.
The trade-off is definitely not worth it. But just to bring back to like the girls, I remember at one point realizing, like coming up with a ratio. Girls that do cocaine and ecstasy every week can drop 1/2 point every year on the 10 scale. Because
Graphs.
I started to get real analytical about this because there were girls.
Amazing.
When you're like 20, 21 years old and you're working in a scene where every week there's 2,000 people at your club and it's 2,000 of the best looking people in New York and in the Hamptons at your club, and it's a beach club. So you're seeing girls in thongs, you're seeing them in tiny bathing suits, sometimes you're seeing them naked. So, like, you're getting, like, a good gist. There's, like, no covering anything up.
Yeah.
It's daylight, too, and you're
Yeah.
out in sunlight. Not, like, indoor, like,
Right.
regular light. You're seeing everything.
There's no light pollution.
There's no
No.
light pollution. There's no red light. There's no
strobe
like...
There's no
light,
angles.
nothing. Yeah.
Yep. And we were sober most of the time, so it wasn't like we were all banged up and had beer goggles. Oh, sure, it was real hot. And you were, like, having arguments the next day. Like, we knew who was hot.
Yeah.
And then you'd see that girl that was like, well, that girl's the hottest girl in here out of 2,000 people. Then you'd see her the next week. You'd be like, yo, that girl's, she's the hottest person this week, too. You'd see her that whole summer. The next summer, you'd be like, oh, yeah, she's the hottest girl that comes here, or one of the hottest girls. And then you'd see them 3 years later. You're like,
You're not even the hottest
can't-
girl in this corner.
You can't say that anymore. Now she's like all of a sudden like an 8.
Right.
And you're like, then all of a sudden 2 years after that, 2.5, 3 years after that, you're like 5 years. She's like, now she goes from like 18, 19, she's like 26, 27. And she's not like, not good looking because she's old. She's not good looking because her teeth are a
She's
little bit
weathered.
Yeah.
Her skin's weathered, a little pitted. She's just got that beat up look, like she's been like holed up on the beach under the broad daylight and the sun for the last few years baking.
My favorite with that is that when you catch them when they're the hottest out of like the 2,000, they won't look in your direction. They don't give you the time of day. They're real uppity.
Oh, yeah.
You catch them that 5 years later, and they're like,
The sevens.
I'll blow you in the bathroom right now. And they're like, oh, remember when you used to be real picky?
You got to get me a vodka and Red Bull though. It's got to
Yeah.
be. It's got to be Stoli.
Dude, the worst case I've seen was recently. This guy, you know who he is. That I pointed out. I don't remember his name, but he worked with us at Neptune's. He was a little bit of a short black dude. He was jacked, wide, super wide, right?
His name started with a D.
I honestly do not remember his name at all.
Black
he worked
dude?
one year. He worked with us.
I
Just
know.
one summer.
I know exactly. Who
Know
he
exactly
is.
what I'm talking
I know
about, right?
exactly who he is.
He walked in recently. He's literally a third of the size. Can't even really walk. I don't know what's wrong with him. I don't know if he's got some sort of drug problem, alcohol problem, or a physical problem. He's out there. He's a little out there too. Definitely doesn't remember me.
I know exactly who you're talking about.
Definitely doesn't remember me. But it's like, what happened to this guy? And he can't be. He's got to be maybe 50. I mean, he was older than me back then. But you know exactly what I'm talking
Yep.
about. It's like wow.
He's that bad right now.
He's that bad.
He used to work.
He's that bad.
I'm not going to say.
He worked with us at ICE as well.
I'm not going to
Yeah.
say his name, but he was a male stripper too, if I'm not mistaken.
That might make sense too.
Yeah, he was a male stripper too at one point, and I'm going to tell you the only reason I know why. I used to work out at the same gym as him when
Right.
I was younger, and my ex-girlfriend and I were always just like, yo, that black dude's jacked. And then I started to work. I worked with him for a year.
Right.
And he used to come out all the time, even after
Yes.
he worked. He used to come out all the time. And he'd always
Yeah.
have, like, hot white chicks with him, if I'm not
Right.
mistaken, right?
I believe so. I don't remember
Yeah.
it too well, but yeah.
And he was on one of those videos. I'm really dating myself now. This is like 2000. I graduated in 01. So this has to be 2002 to 2003. Maybe 2004 at the latest. So we're talking like over a decade ago. He was on one of those videos like women go wild at male strip club on like the porn video on a porn site.
Oh,
And I asked him about it. And he told me, he's like, that was like before the internet and internet porn got real big, like late 90s.
wow.
And he was like, I danced in Atlantic City and we do like a Chippendales thing. And he's like, and we all got approached and we all got paid like a few $1,000s to like do this video. And it wasn't like a full on like crazy like porn video like you'd see now, but it was like what you'd expect a bunch of like middle-aged women at like a male strip club when all the girls are wasted at like a bachelorette party, but before the internet and before cell phone cameras and before any of that stuff like existed at all. And I got a real big kick out of that.
That's funny. But the fall it's like just seeing them like, what the hell, man.
Whenever we talk about something like this, there's one specific girl that pops into my head. I'm not going to say her name because I know that she's from Long Island and she has a lot of friends that I still know and probably listen to this. But this girl legit went from like hardcore 10, like no like doubt in anybody's mind that this girl was a 10, to she's still good looking now, but she's like a good looking 7.
Wow.
I can think of
Ecstasy every week. Every single week. Neptune's Crowbar. That was Saturday.
I think alcohol's
Good
the
time.
worst offender of them all.
It's a combination of all of it because
I
it
think-
wasn't just
Drugs,
you
you
can't
can't
do
do
drinking.
ecstasy every week, David.
Nobody
Expect to
does,
look the same.
But, no, but dude, alcohol is by far
Because it's the most socially
the worst.
acceptable.
No. I think
I
in
think-
terms of what it does damage.
That's what I
us.
mean, because it's the most socially acceptable. So people will go home from work and have like 2 drinks, and then they'll go out and they'll have 2 drinks, and then they'll party on the weekend, have 10 drinks.
I think it's hands down the biggest impact on your physical well-being than any other.
that you don't feel as you're young, but as you get older,
Yeah.
you start to feel.
It like fucking pickles you.
Yeah.
You know, I know dudes. My friend's father is a big drinker, and he's been a drunk as long as I've known him, which is 20 years now. And watching his physical deterioration has been insane. And he doesn't do anything else; he just drinks. But he drinks all the time, a ton, and he like embalmed himself.
Right.
Well, that's what happens eventually. Like when you die. Like my friend's father drank himself to death, and he was like estranged from the family and the whole 9 yards. And they didn't find him for I think 2 months
Holy shit.
after he passed away, in his house. And they were saying it was in the summertime, and I was saying like, oh, the house must have smelled like it must have been awful. And one of my acquaintances that had been there said, no, it wasn't that bad. He had drank himself to death, and he had the air conditioner on real low, and the alcohol like semi-preserved his body.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
he didn't like rot and deteriorate and fall apart. And like this was like when I talk about like hardcore drinker, like this was a guy that was yellow for the last like several months of his life because he had just drank himself to the point where he got
liver
like
had failed.
yeah, liver had failed.
Yeah.
He had jaundice, like the whole 9 yards, like spots on him like all over the place.
Scary.
And they said he'd actually like drank himself to the point where he was actually like being semi preserved with it.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Died on the couch with empty bottles of liquor all around him.
Working, I always felt bad, like seeing dudes that are like walking out and can't even like hold themselves up. It's like, how do you get? I mean, I've got to that point one or twice, but
it's one thing when you're in your like late
Yeah.
teens, early 20s.
Right.
Yeah, when you're figuring it out.
yeah, when you
Yeah,
figure
but
it
when
out.
you're-
Like, let's see how far you can push this thing.
Yeah.
When you're a 40-year-old man with like 3 kids, it's
I know,
just pathetic.
man.
I've watched, like I said, the guy who I was talking about, I've watched this guy fall over on more occasions than I can count and like scare his family because he fell and hit his head, and it's like, man, like you're a grandfather.
There's a video on Instagram right now that just came up like today, and people are reposting it, and it says like, think about it, have you ever been this drunk? And there's an old man that's probably in his like 60s, and he's trying to push his way through a mirror.
It's a mirror.
And it's him, and he sees himself, and he goes to shove himself, and you can see him physically getting angry at this guy in the mirror. That's himself.
He's trying to let himself pass.
That is amazing.
And then when he goes to walk, he's right,
amazing.
and he's getting angry. Yeah.
Can we pull this up?
Yes. That is
drunk people doing things on Instagram. Instagram is one of the best things ever.
Steve, give me one.
What's the Instagram account?
Go with wedding. No, it was on everywhere.
It was like one of those like gone.
It was
virals.
on Reddit. It was on Facebook. It was on Instagram. It's got to be on.
Did it
YouTube.
make it on Instagram?
Is that it right there? Oh no, drunk guy sings at wedding.
Is it at a wedding?
This is right here. Drunk Russian man frustrated he can't get around himself. It's actually impressive. Yeah, this is it. Full screen this. Is this it?
No, this is not what I saw.
This is not it.
It's the same thing though.
The same concept, yeah.
All right, well, I don't want to
Drunk
let.
Armenian? Try this one. No, go back up.
So, I grew up in Queens, right, in Corona, and I lived in a building. So when I was like 8 years old,
That's it.
We hear this banging, like somebody's trying to kick a door down.
Oh, here we go. We got
Oh
this. Is
my
it? This is the
God.
right one.
This is it.
This is amazing.
He's conversing with himself.
Yeah,
like,
he's having a
why-
conversation. Like, why don't you get out of my way?
Excuse me.
What do you think this is? Oh, you think you look real sharp in that
No,
shirt?
please, after you. Well, he starts.
wanna
off,
dance?
He starts off so congenial with himself, and then it just
Holy
progresses.
shit!
This is at a wedding.
Look, now he's like
That's
getting a
somebody's
little.
father right there.
Yeah, he's getting belligerent. He's like, why are you
He's like-
standing in my way? Let me through.
What the fuck is your problem, old man?
Look at him. He's like, I
pass.
told you to go by. I told you to go by. Oh,
You gonna
shoved
push me? You gonna push me? You want to go?
This
You
is
wanna go?
incredible.
This is amazing.
I believe the title is "Drunk Armenian Man" something or other on
Oh,
YouTube.
That is amazing.
Yeah, drunk Armenian man fighting with reflection in the mirror.
This is
He's still going at it, man.
So it's amazing how.
Does he
common
figure
is.
this out?
No, someone just walks him off eventually.
Oh my god!
No, he figured it out. Oh yeah, somebody called him.
Yeah, somebody comes and says, like,
Some other guy's like, oh, look at Uncle Bill.
So-
He can't. He thinks he's trying to. He's gonna get in a fight with himself.
Bill, this way.
It's amazing how foggy you get, right? And how common this is, right? So I'm like 7 or 8 years old. I forget how old I was. And I live in Queens in this building, and we hear like somebody trying to bang this door down, right? And it was the apartment right in front of us. And I looked through the peephole, and my mom's like, "Who is it? Who is it?" And I'm like, "Oh my God, it's somebody we knew. It was one of my friends growing up's dad. He's trying to kick the door down from the apartment across us. I lived on the 3rd floor, so he lived on the 6th floor. So the elevator must have stopped on the 3rd floor.
He got off.
And he got off, and he couldn't open the door. So the crazy and the sad thing is that these 2 women lived across from us.
They were probably scared.
They were
shitless.
probably shitting their pants.
Oh, sure.
Or maybe they knew who he was and looked at the people like, oh my God, what do? He lives in our building, So he's kicking the door. Now he's like reaching back, like hitting our door and kicking the door.
So he's like winding up.
Now these are metal doors, like he's not going to be able to kick it open.
Like the apartment doors with the big black doorknob.
Yeah.
I mean, doorbell
yes,
circle.
Yes. So
Those are thick doors.
Those are thick doors. Like you're not going to kick that door open. And he's boom, boom. So my mom's like, you gotta open the door. Me, 8-year-old Eddie, open the door and tell him that he's on the wrong floor.
Yeah.
So I did.
And what did he say?
He just turned around. He's like, oh, sorry.
Was he fucking drunk as
He
shit?
was
or-
hammered.
Holy shit!
Hammered.
So I like to drink, but I hate getting drunk. I don't like Does that make any sense? I just don't. I don't like the feeling of being drunk.
No.
Does that make any sense? But I love to drink. I love to have like a good bourbon, a good scotch.
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
But like I'll have two. That's it. Because
I mean, what are you tasting at a certain point? You're not tasting anything, right?
It's not even that. It's just I don't like the sensation of feeling like
I don't know.
I can barely
like being drunk. We were just talking about it last night on the podcast that both Dave and we couldn't even remember the last time we got drunk. I had one drink. I had one drink at the last event that we did commentary for, which was like beginning of February, I think. Maybe middle of February. It was at least almost a month ago.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I couldn't even tell you, but I feel like I'm due, though. Have you ever felt like you're due? Like, I feel like I'm due.
I would get buzzed too quick. Two drinks and I'm
that's where I'm at right now. Yeah. I think if I had like 3 glasses of scotch, I'd have no business being in public.
No.
I'm willing to test that theory.
No, definitely not.
That's funny.
No, definitely not. And it's just wild. It happens all the time. Mm-hmm. I mean, look, all the years that we worked, how many times have we seen people stumble out and even get in their cars? It's like, what are you doing?
People would just get so trashed. I remember when we worked at the clubs, especially when drugs were real popular, and people were mixing like GHB and ketamine and all those things. You'd see them outside, and you'd actually see them like the drugs fighting each other inside the people.
Right.
And, like 1 minute they're like bouncing off the walls and they're like flopping all around. They're like arguing with you that they should get let back in, and then like 7 minutes later they look like somebody out of The Walking Dead, and they're like eating sand like face down in the bushes. Then they come back. They're like 45 minutes later they're back arguing with you to let them in, and then you'd see them you'd see the look in their face. They lose their power. They'd start to like dwindle, and next thing you know they're back in the shrubs.
The best was when we had that guy at Neptune's. We made him take a break, and we made him walk the plank. Yeah.
For those of you that have never been to Neptune's, it was a beach club that was on Dune Road in the Hamptons, and the beach club was right on the ocean, giant jet deck. What would you say? Fit about 2,000 people comfortably, but I think we packed about 4,000 in over the course of like a day on a holiday weekend.
Easy.
And the parking lot was sand and gravel, and we had this plank that ran. It was probably like
8 feet,
6 foot wide. I mean 6-inch or 4-inch, 6-inch wide, like railroad tie. It was basically like a railroad tie.
Right.
I think it was longer than 8
Not
feet
hard
long.
to walk.
Not hard to walk, but like it's almost like a balance beam.
Yeah.
And it stuck out of the parking lot, maybe like 4 inches up on either side, give or take.
Easy.
So a balance beam where, I mean, if you fell off, you weren't falling very far. It was less than a full normal step high. Yeah. And when people would come to the club and they'd be real banged up, or we thought they were too drunk to be amongst the regular people, the regular patrons, we would tell them, listen, we see that you've had a few drinks and you don't look like you're all right. We're afraid for your own safety inside that you might fall over and hurt yourself or fall on somebody else. And everyone, of course, would argue with you, no, I'm fine. So we'd say, listen, all right, we're going to have a test. And the test was you got to walk the plank. And if you can make it to the end,
You're in.
You're
back.
Yeah. And if you can't make it to the end, you got to sit on this stoop. We used to call it like the naughty stoop or the naughty step.
For a half hour.
For a half hour. And then at 1.5 hour in, you were allowed to retry your luck on the plank. So on like a holiday weekend, sometimes we'd have like 4, 6, 7 people all sitting on the naughty step, waiting for their time to walk the plank. And I would like keep track. I'd be like, all right, you get in. And we couldn't even be like, all right, this guy gets to walk at like 3:15, this guy 3:20. We just have to run them every half hour because there's too many different people to keep track of.
It's a real shame that this missed the Instagram era because you could have made a whole page dedicated to like people of the plank.
Oh, it would have been like one whole Instagram page.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
We didn't even have cell phone cameras at the time. This is like Nextel era.
Yeah. It's a double-edged sword because like For that stuff, it would have been fantastic.
Yep.
For other things,
We'd
not so good.
all be in prison.
Yeah,
Every single one of us. The whole staff would be in prison, and they'd have to hire an entirely new staff every single year.
Oh man!
But we used to make people walk the plank.
Yep.
That's pretty awesome.
And they would get so mad when they fall off like 2 feet to go, and they'll turn around. Come on,
Yep.
please. I'm
I almost made it. I almost made
you
it. Nope.
almost is not making it. You gotta
Almost
go
isn't
sit
going to
down.
save us if you fall and break your leg inside. So you're going to have the seat 30 minutes. See you at 2:30.
And the pouting, it was like literally
Yeah, they
pouting.
would pout. And this wasn't just walking the plank in front of like Eddie and I. There would be sometimes a couple hundred people online, plus the deck. The people in the food area, like the concession area,
watching.
would all have like a front row view down into the parking lot from where they were sitting. So there would be people cheering them along while they were going like, yeah, do it. And they'd fall and everyone would be like, oh, you'd get laughed at by 400 people after you ate dirt.
It's a lot of pressure.
A lot of pressure. Sometimes people wouldn't make it 2-3 attempts. They wouldn't even make it.
But I think they didn't care about that pressure about people watching. They wanted to get back into the party.
Yeah, you don't
Desperately.
dude. When you're rolling real hard, or you did a couple bumps of blow, and the music's real good, and you got some girls inside in bikinis.
Yeah, they wanted to get back in.
They'd pay every dollar, and we'd let them pay every dollar to come back in too. So these were the broke ones. The rich guys, they didn't have to because they were just slipping us hundos and coming right up the steps.
Increase those pockets. You don't got to walk the plank.
Yeah, there's no plank. There's no plank for me. I've got a pocket full of hundos.
The good old days. So funny, the evolution of the job. Because when I started, I was 17, and it's so funny how I was the smallest guy working at Neptune's.
And you were a big dude.
And I mean, I'm not
Like 6 foot, 200 and change.
Yeah, I was like back then I was probably like 230, and I was the smallest guy.
Yep.
And I remember working there, and I'm like, wow, these guys are monsters. So of course I had something to prove, but again, I was training, so I just had started training, and this was way before it was common knowledge what a rear naked choke was. Like nobody knew what that was back then. Not even a clue, you know? So when I was training back then, we were so ahead of our time. Now I'm like way behind, but whatever. So, like, you choke somebody out, they're laying down. Nobody ever saw that before.
They think you killed somebody.
Pretty much, you know?
Death.
Yeah. And even the person, when they come to, they had no idea what happened to them. And they're the nice as pie, and they walk out. But my first weekend at Neptune's, Memorial Day weekend, it's cold, right? So all these monsters are putting sweaters on. Now this is what led to the yellow sweater with the security on it, right? So everybody's wearing different sweaters, right? So a massive brawl breaks out in the parking lot. These guys are nailing each other.
You know, and the first weekend, a lot of guys
don't know each other.
Nobody knows each other.
Nobody knows each other, or they know each other, but they, you know.
And people have to keep in mind this is New York, so there's a lot of big guys. It's not just like if you're in like Illinois and you go to the club or the bar and you're like, oh, that guy has to be a bouncer. He's real big. Nah, in New York, you needed giant bouncers because sometimes there was giant not sometimes. It was just popular to be big back then.
It was
Still is.
Not like that.
Not like that.
You know, Dave, you missed it. I caught the tail end of it, and with Steve, we had
I've seen it.
We had Steve.
No, I didn't miss it. I know. Dude, I was around. I went to Neptune's. I remember the culture.
No. You went to Neptune's culture. You went to like 2012 Neptune's.
Yeah.
2000.
No, I went before that too.
2000 and like late 90s, which I wasn't even there yet.
Yeah.
To like 2005 or 6, big.
Yeah, no, I know the culture. The culture at Neptune's was worse than anywhere else, though. That was the spot for the juice head culture. Right. But I'm saying the being big fat hasn't tapered off nearly as much.
No,
it's just there's not
back then.
I think you guys maybe think that it has because there's not a place like Neptune's anymore.
Possibly. That's a good point.
That's what I think.
But
there's nobody that's that big though anymore.
No, there is. It's just they don't all congregate at Neptune's anymore.
I guess so. You know what? That might be right.
Like
they just don't.
show.
And they're only
not all in one spot.
And
Neptune's was the spot.
Was
for
the
that.
spot.
Yeah,
and Saturday or in the summer, if you were like 6 foot and over like 250, you had to go there to see if
Dude,
you were bigger than the other guy.
I used to see guys
2%
working out in the
body fat,
gym
yeah.
who were like, would talk out loud about getting ready for Neptunes. Or something. Like, it was a thing.
People would
So-
drive there with the
cut
heat
weight.
on to the car. Yeah.
Yeah,
Like,
lifting
they would,
and doing
they'd be
weights.
cutting on
I
the
think-
way to Neptune.
Yeah, I think that just because Neptunes doesn't exist anymore, you had the highest concentration of that, so that's why it seems like it's gone now. But
The other thing is, I used to work out. There weren't as many gyms back then that catered to like those types of like people, and I worked out at a powerhouse in Stony Brook, which was just Meathead Gym
Right.
Central.
Right.
Like I would go there, and I remember
Ultimate
working out
Fitness
there.
over here used to be just like that.
This was before Ultimate Fitness here even opened. That gym used to let you work out with no shirt on. Ultimate Fitness made you wear a shirt. I remember working out at Ultimate Fitness.
The no
Ultimate
judgment
Fitness
zone?
Powerhouse, yeah, Powerhouse in Stony Brook, up over by like the mall. And I would go there with Nick Martin, and there was like a couple big dudes. There was this guy Dave and another guy Eric. I'm not going to say their last names, but these were like 280 to 300 pound, like 6 foot to 6'4" juice heads
With
that
under
just-
8% body fat.
Yeah,
and
that
shit.
just used to walk around and like, oh, that guy must be. I remember being a teenager in high school. Oh, is that guy like a professional strongman? Nah, he goes to Neptune. I'm like, wait, what? No, he's just big to go to Neptune.
This guy got in peak physical condition just to do ecstasy without a shirt
Yep.
in the sun.
That's what it was. You trained for Neptune.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the women were like into that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Big time.
I used to have a friend who was like, I can't wait for all the juice monkeys. I cannot wait for Memorial Day weekend. I can't wait for Saturdays at Neptune's because I want to get me a juice monkey. That's what she used to call that. She was obsessed with it.
Oh, a girl.
Oh, yeah, she was obsessed with it.
Because me and like little Eric or Eric Uresk and I used to be like, can't wait to Saturday to go to Neptune's. We're gonna fuck some juice heads up.
No, she wanted to go fuck a juice head. That's what she wanted to do.
Opposite,
Different F word.
opposite, a different F.
But when I started there in '99, it was like insanity, man. At 4 o'clock, you knew that, and there was no really like messing around. Like there's no drinking, nothing. Everybody had to be on point because 4 o'clock came around.
It was fight time.
That was fight time.
It was go time.
Yeah, it was fight time. And
Why was it 4 o'clock?
Because it opened at 12.
They had a band that played.
That had a band that played, and then the house music would turn back on.
Usually
That's
like-
when
usually
everybody
like a-
starts to peak.
Usually like a cruddy band, so
Yeah.
nobody would get real serious between like 12 when they opened and
Right.
4. It was sort of like hang out.
Yeah.
They have a band going. They play some down tempo like electronic music. It would go back and forth, and then at 4 o'clock
Yep,
it was just all house music.
That's when the business started. Yeah.
And everybody's like, that's when you're breaking out the 8-ball to start doing blasts. And the bathroom line for the men started to like pick up. You're like, why is there a line to
The
go in the men's
intensity all of a
bathroom?
sudden.
Everyone's
like,
coming out with
got
a
high.
nosebleed.
Why is
from the
everybody?
bed.
Yeah.
Why does everybody have to take a shit? Why is everyone waiting for the stall in the bathroom?
Yeah. The intensity got high. It was, that guy flexed harder than I flexed. Like, it's just some crazy shit that would go on.
All the people that have been staring at each other trying to figure out who was bigger and who had
Yeah.
like a lower percentage of body
Fat,
fat.
yeah.
We're all going to meet on the dance floor in the dance circle, and
Yep.
it was going to go down.
Yeah.
You with your team,
It was literally.
me with my team.
It was a tornado, man. You never seen bodies fly the way you see them fly there. It was unbelievable. It's a shame that there wasn't cell phone cameras back then because it would be very interesting to see.
There's
that.
real grainy video on YouTube of it. We're actually having Theo on the podcast, I think next week or the week after. So we'll get to
Really?
talk to him or down the road a little bit more.
I think it was about a month now.
Okay, so down the
We
road
had
a
to
little bit
reschedule.
more. So
Yeah.
we're gonna have him on, which would be pretty cool to talk
That's
to
so
him
funny
about.
because it's funny like because I was the small guy, they put me at the front door, not the front entrance door, which was on the side, right?
Yeah,
which
yeah.
me and Eric ended up working the front door there, but I was at the front that faced the street.
the stoop, the really steep ramp,
Yeah.
the really steep steps that went up.
Yes.
That those were the ones that you didn't want to get flung down if you were
Right.
getting thrown out.
Which a lot of people did get flung down. So I was told nobody comes up these steps. I was like, okay, nobody comes up these steps. And this was my first weekend, so I didn't know who Theo was. And he goes down, I guess, on his break. He's coming back up, and like, nah, you got to go around, dude. You can't come up this way. He's like, I'm the DJ. I'm like,
Sure you are.
Sure you are. You're the DJ? Okay. So I send him around, and then at the time, Bruce Harris was the head of security there. So he came over. He's like, you're doing a good job, but he's the DJ. Just let him come back up. And then ever since then, like that whole summer, he would like Theo would come and hang out with me, and we would like sit and talk and stuff. This was before he was, Theo.
Mm-hmm.
But so much fun, man. It was so much fun.
Those are the good old days, and I don't get I hate nostalgia, and the only reason I'm upset is because there's no place that took the place when
Of that, yeah.
There's nowhere to go now on Saturdays during the day.
A lot of people go to Flynn's on Fire Island. It's become a little bit of a newer.
You know what the problem is? It's not as accessible.
Right.
It's a boat ride.
Right.
I mean, I don't want to do that.
It's not nearly as accessible. But it's funny since when Neptune's closed, the Drift closed with it.
Yeah.
Then I think a couple other spots followed suit behind it, and Flynn started to become, because they did play the house music and stuff like this.
Right.
Flynn started to become the spot, and when Flynn started getting way too crazy,
they shut that down.
They didn't shut it down,
but they kind of stopped it, right?
No, we started getting a lot of the fallout. Saturdays at my bar, all of a sudden, over the course of a couple of years from there, I'm like, there's a lot more hair product here.
Yeah.
There's a lot more testosterone here. There's a lot more tribal ink here. It's like, what's happening here? And a lot of people would be talking about, oh, well, we don't want to go to Flynn's today, or we went to Flynn's, it was packed, so we came here.
People want somewhere to go, and when you get older, you can't recover as quickly. So if you can dedicate a Saturday during the day to go out, do some drinking, party, go home, sleep it off. But like you can't go out till 2, 3, 4 in the morning anymore. No. And Neptune's their main crowd was probably like the 25 to even older, like 27, 28 to 38-year-old crowd, like people that still wanted to go out and get it in, but aren't willing to stay out till necessarily like 3 or 4 in the morning.
I'm honestly surprised they were able to close Neptune's, guys. I feel like they've been trying to do it for such a long time.
It really fell off though. At the end, it was sad to see, because like from when I started there to I was literally there from 99 to when they closed. What was it? 15?
2014 or 2015?
Yeah, 2014, 2015. So back then, when in the early 2000s, it was Neptune's, CPI's Saturday night, Neptune's again on Sunday, CPI for their, I forget what they called it. It was the late night, Amnesia night, where it went till 6 in the morning.
Yep.
Now we're working these shifts, and then you have Neptune's on Monday, on the holiday weekend, and everywhere was packed, everywhere. And CPI's was mobbed, Beach Bar mobbed, like everywhere was Foggy Goggle mobbed.
I had counted them. There were 18 clubs within a 20-minute drive in the Hamptons at one point. 18 clubs.
Yeah.
And now there's none.
Yep.
Yeah, but you have down there. You had CPI's, Neptune's, Foggy Goggle, Drift, Beach Bar,
Turtle Bay, Surf Clubs.
At the time, the Drift was across the street from Neptune's.
Yeah, the Drift was a separate building. Yeah.
Yep.
Until it burnt down, right?
Yep. And what was Summers was open at night.
Yeah, Summers was next door.
Yeah.
That was Saturday night.
Saturday
I think was
night. Yeah, they did the 18 and over.
Yeah. I remember that was like actually like one of the first clubs that I went to in the Hamptons, because it was 18 and over, and CPI. Shout out to Anthony Pasquale and a couple of his buddies worked as barbacks at CPI, and I got snuck in there when I was like 17 years old. I was 17 years old, and I got snuck in there one summer. Actually, it wasn't even the summer yet, because I was still in school. So it was like probably like late May, early June, and I thought I was like the shit.
I've never been to CPI's.
I was so cool, Eddie. I was so cool. Not even there. I was a loser when I was there. I was scared that I was going to get like beat up or thrown out by like one of the adults. But like I was so cool the next day. I was like, yeah, I was at a nightclub.
Where was CPI? I never went to it.
I was at a nightclub, CPI. You heard the CPI? Yeah, I was there. It's on the radio.
It's right by the Shinnecock Canal. It's still there. The building's still up.
What did it become?
Nothing. It's just...
It was White House after that.
It was White House.
Yeah, right. Because I remember like 50 Cent and shit they all played there.
Yeah.
That's the one place. I never went there.
Dude, that place, I remember, the old owner would have like orientation or whatever for the staff, and he's like, oh, if you see any promoters come up, kick them out. No promoters. We don't need them. And they didn't. The place would get packed.
Yep, every single week.
Every single week. Every Saturday.
and then it went to 18 and overnight.
Well, that's
And then
usually
it
that's
fell
the MO.
off.
When the
Yeah.
place starts to fall off, all right, we were 21, 25 and over.
Let's do some hip hop nights or some Latin
Let's start
nights.
bringing some people in, because we can't get the crowd anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I just wonder what really killed it out there. It had to be a combination of a lot of things.
Definitely what killed Neptune's at the end was, the town cracking down and the economy. I think
Right.
the economy was the main thing. Just because I remember, the reason I went back and got an MBA in finance was I would see at the nightclubs who
All
was
these guys,
spending
yeah.
money
Right.
every week. And there were two groups that spend money every single week at nightclubs. And it wasn't like a little bit of money. Like you'd see like, all right, here's these two guys. They come out every single week, sometimes 2 nights a week. So these guys are dropping $500 to $1,000 twice a week. And it was two groups, the people that worked in finance and the drug dealers.
Right.
It was those two groups of people. So I obviously wasn't going to college for drug dealing.
Right.
So I was like, I better get this financial degree.
Yeah, it's freaking crazy. But it was weird seeing from 99, 2000 to the very last day. And that last summer, I think they were doing 200 people, 300 people at Neptune's, if they
Yeah.
were lucky.
I didn't know it fell off that hard.
It fell off hard.
Well, you know what? I think a part of it was the owners just didn't want to do it anymore. They were in their
they were
late
kinda-
70s,
it was
early
spent.
80s.
Yeah.
They also were very wealthy from their other business.
Right.
So it wasn't like they were doing it because they had to or they needed the money
And
or
the
they
festivals, I think, also killed it. A lot of the big DJs were going to the festivals. People were doing the festival stuff.
They had no compete clauses for
Yeah.
like 100 miles. So if you were going to play at one of the big nightclubs in the city or you're going to play at Electric Zoo with 30 days before, 30 days after, you weren't allowed to play anywhere.
Yeah.
And the DJs got super expensive. That was the other
Yeah,
thing.
another
It went
thing, too.
from paying $2,500 to maybe. I remember when like Boris and Victor Calderon first started. Boris was making like $4,000,
Right.
$6,000. Then it was like, oh, I remember he played on a holiday weekend on like 4th of July or something like that. And I was like, oh, what is he making for something like this? They said, oh, it's a holiday, so he's making 10 and a half.
Right. Yeah.
So I was like, oh, I mean, that was like pretty crazy money back then to make
Dude,
as a DJ. But now these guys are commanding $100,000 a night.
Yeah.
Not him specifically, but he's still probably in
certain
the
DJs,
$20,000
yeah.
to $30,000 a night range.
And the crazy thing is people, too, would pay 40, 50, 60 bucks to get in,
get
just
in.
to get in the door.
Yep.
Now, God forbid, I ask for $10 to get in.
Oh my god. We need to be started on that shit.
Well, I mean, 40, 50 bucks to party at a place with a party going on like that was going on when we were working back in those days. I'd pay double that now to go
Right.
to the same party.
Right.
I'd pay
Yeah.
triple, maybe even quadruple.
Yeah.
Because I don't even know where there's a party like that exists.
Nah.
That's
There's all
orga-
rooftops now and that
But they're
type
not
of
even.
stuff.
But they're all. The other thing is that I felt like the parties that went on in the Hamptons in the late '90s to early 2000s were all organic parties.
Right.
And by organic, I mean, yeah, there was a nightclub. Yeah, they were there to have a good time. But the party was an organic party that existed because the people were there to have fun. It wasn't like a manufactured party with women
Right.
coming out, sitting on each other's shoulders with sparklers saying, hey, look, everyone, it's time to party.
They weren't
Yeah.
paid to be there.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
It was. All right,
Wasn't
we're
Vegas.
here. We're chewing up a bunch of Molly and ecstasy. We're gonna drink some like real like purple drinks with Red Bull in them and magic potions. And there's a group of people on crystal meth and GHB, and everyone here is wild. And yeah, that's what's going on. And everyone was on the same page. That's the other
Yeah.
thing. Like, why are we here? We're here to get fucked up and dance.
Yeah.
Try to get laid.
And it's funny, too, because, like, it was the same crowd pretty much from Neptune's to CPI's. And CPI's, we had 15 bouncers on. Huge venue.
Yeah, they did.
6 guys in the main room. Never any fights. Hardly ever any fights. But Neptune's, 25 guys on.
Yeah,
It's
30 to 35.
35
on,
guys
Alcohol
on
and
it.
sun is a weird mixture.
The
Alcohol,
sun is what does
The
it.
sun
drugs.
really is.
No, for
It's-
real, the sun is
Yeah.
definitely a factor.
It's
And a lot more issues.
You'd almost be able to like physically see the people that were going to have issues. You'd see them like start to boil over, and you'd be like, "Yo, this dude's gonna have a meltdown.
Dude, easy.
This dude's gonna have a meltdown. It's gonna be wonderful."
Yeah. Yeah, it was great. And we would just let it go. All right,
Yep.
let's see where it goes. All right. They're flexing at each other now. Here comes the push. Nada. And then sometimes it would just go. It would be the tornado of bodies flying everywhere.
Yeah, like I don't even know what's going on. I'm just going to take a step back, let this thing burn out for a second, maybe pick somebody off if I have an opportunity. But
yeah, so much fun. So much fun.
But that's all the martial arts experience getting used in real life that now you're able to translate into your animation and
into
your
my
drawings.
comic. Yeah. So hopefully it translates well and people like it.
Well, I think it's working so far.
Yeah.
Sold 1,200 copies. I mean, I have your first 3 issues,
Yep.
and I like them.
Yeah. So like I said, if I could get picked up, then you got some gems there.
I'm banking on this. Max's college is riding on this.
No pressure,
I don't know
Eddie.
about that,
No pressure,
but but you never know. You never know. And original art, people like original art. So that's one thing in college they told me is one of my teachers was like, always buy art. See art in the street, buy it, because you never know.
And I remember you always telling me that when I was like broke and I didn't have any money. And now I buy, especially with the advent of Instagram, you see all these artists can sell directly, so it's not like you're going to a gallery. Galleries are intimidating. I still don't like. I buy a lot of art. I probably buy at least a half dozen pieces a year.
Right.
And I try to buy big stuff. I buy some small stuff. But if you look at the walls of my house, I have quite a bit.
Yeah.
And I still won't go into an art gallery to buy something. Because I feel super intimidated.
Right.
The people there almost like are a little condescending
Yeah,
sometimes, or
it's snooty.
Even if they're not snooty and condescending,
Right.
they talk way above like what my level of expertise is.
Right.
But Instagram is such a great tool because it allows artists to put themselves out, and you know what?
Allows you to curate for yourself.
Curate
Exactly.
for yourself. I
Yeah.
get artists that follow me just because I'll follow a couple artists that I like. I'm like, oh, look at this guy.
Right.
And you know what? I'm buying stuff. I have like pieces from a guy in England that
Right.
I just dig his stuff.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, this guy's piece, it would look really good. Look at the color schemes of this piece of work he did. Pick it up
Yeah.
for my house.
Yep.
And I feel like Instagram now and social media really lets all you guys like get yourself out
Well,
there.
Instagram is good like that. Facebook, not so much,
Not
but
so much
Instagram. Yeah.
But it's
Yeah.
made me start buying pieces because who knows what any of this stuff is going to be worth down the road. And if not, I enjoy the fuck out of looking
It doesn't
at
matter.
it in the
Yeah,
meantime.
you like it. It's hanging on your wall in your house, and that's all that matters.
Yep.
Awesome.
So, plug how people can curate your stuff.
Well, they could follow me on Instagram. My personal page is EverlastDX, and then they could also find me on Day One the Comic, and they could also like the page on Facebook.
Right on.
And then we have the website at www.dayOneTheComic.com.
And that's where you post like where you'll be at these shows. And everything,
That's
so
just
people can
our-
keep tabs.
That's like our store. I do that mainly on Instagram, like where I'm going to be.
Where's the
Yeah.
next? What's the next show coming up?
The next show is going to be in Jersey at the end of April.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where is that? Is that is it like
It's-
Comic Con?
Yeah, it's an East Coast Comic Con.
East
That was
Coast
actually
Comic-Con?
the first show that we did. That one-day show
okay.
where we met Danny Trejo.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the first show we did. Now I'm actually going to do the entire weekend instead of just
cool,
one day.
Cool.
Very
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, so it's exciting.
Nice.
Awesome.
Well, dude, thanks for coming back.
Well, thank you for having me, man. It was awesome.